Good evening, dear professors, our esteemed speaker and members of the IIMA community. Welcome to the second session of How to Start a Startup, the flagship lecture series of IIM Ahmedabad, aimed to create a platform for dialogue among the members of the startup community. In the first session, Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani spoke about the life of an entrepreneur, the considerations and the implications that it entails. Today we have amidst us another one of our star alum, Mr. Raghunandan ji, an entrepreneur at heart and the founder of the hugely successful venture Taxi for Sure. He'll speak on the topic of idea and team, the next logical step in the journey of an entrepreneur. I request Professor Jaju to kindly welcome the speaker on stage. So friends, without much ado, let's just hear it from the man himself.
Hey great guys, just before I start, alright, thanks a lot for having me here and to share whatever little that I know. Before I start on a monologue, I just want to understand how many of you here are entrepreneurs or were entrepreneurs? How many of you here were entrepreneurs or how many people want to start something? So what are the rest guys doing? Forced to sit here. That's okay. Great. So, and for people who didn't raise their hands for questions, no, I was one among them when I was in campus. So it doesn't really matter, right? So getting into IIMA was the right thing to do after 2 years of work experience. Then getting out of IIMA and earn enough money to pay the hefty education loan was the biggest objective then. And I think which most of you go through that, but you see a lot of your classmates discussing ideas, wanting to start and stuff like that, right? And it's very difficult to keep away from that bunch of people, right? So you also tend to start discussing a lot of ideas, and you hit few, you don't really have enough courage to pursue those, but later you essentially get into the discussion of the flip idea. I had it in 2004. The Ola idea, I had it in 2008, right? And that makes some interesting conversation. Even the people whom you're talking to will not believe you, right? Essentially what, I think I'm supposed to talk about ideas and the team to begin with, right? So let me start with idea. Let me share how did we get the idea, and that may not necessarily be the same approach, but at least there are a few lessons that needs to be learned in that phase. So Apramaya was 1 year junior to me. So Apramaya was 1 year junior to me in campus, but we knew each other for a long time before we got into campus. So currently we knew each other for the last 16 years. That's a lot. So me and Apramaya used to discuss a lot of ideas, and we used to dismiss all the ideas because it was not big enough and it was not great, right? And so during one of those conversations, we were trying to build something similar to Ixigo or Meta Travel search engine. I don't know how many people are aware of Ixigo, right? And once we so during that conversation also we essentially discussed that and eliminated that, right? There is no value proposition that we had. So after that we started doing what we do best after three years of working. That's what most of you guys typically do, start cribbing about your life, right? Crib about your boss, crib about your corporate, crib about your Jet Blue privilege card, Jet Platinum privilege card, right? You crib about everything, right? And during this cribbing time you essentially start drinking, right? And yeah. So once you start drinking, you essentially get into cribbing mode without any inhibitions, right? So during that crib stories when the idea of Taxi for Sure was stuck. So the only thing that was common between me and Apramaya was I used to be a consultant, Apramaya used to be a business development guy, and the only thing that was common for both of us was we used to travel a lot, right? And whichever city that we used to go to, finding a cab was always difficult. It just so happened that both of us arrived at the same crib at the more or less the same, because of which we realized that there was something in it, right? And thankfully one of us at the present mind put it on a tissue paper, and thankfully we found the tissue paper next day morning, and otherwise I don't think so there would have been a Taxi for Sure story. We knew that there was something interesting that previous night, till we found our later the tissue paper, we couldn't really figure out what it was, right? So you guys know the cafe coffee day caption, no? What is that? Cafe coffee day. Yeah, a lot more can happen over a mug of beer. So if you really want to discuss and get ideas, right? Ideas would not really typically come when you are sitting alone or trying to ideate, right? Ideas originate typically from discussions. You guys understand what I trying to convey here? You need to discuss. You need to discuss. You just can't get into a meeting with an agenda of getting an idea, right? Ideas happen, right? So you need to essentially continue having the discussion whether the person on the other side is something who is probably of the same caliber as you are, or may not necessarily be. But having said that, you need to have those discussions. You need to have those conversations, right? And during those conversations, something or the other is going to tick within you. Whether the person even understands that the other person that you are talking to would understand or not doesn't really matter, right? So you can't sit alone and essentially start looking at ideas, right? You need to have discussions. If you guys are not having those discussions or the conversations, right, you need to start doing that, right? And how do we go about looking at this, right? And what kind of ideas that would typically work, or how do we know it's a great idea or not, right? Those are the questions, right? So there is no hard and fast rule that this is the idea that would really work, or this is the right way to really look at ideas. But given the limited experience that I have investing in some of the startups that I've invested in, or looking at the ecosystem a bit more closer than you guys are, right? The first thing is you are facing a problem, right? And you have a solution to address that particular problem, right? What you need to probably do that is to essentially churn out all the problems that you guys are facing and figure out you have any viable solution to any of those problems, right? That's one. Understood? The second thing is probably look at different sectors, right? There are a lot of new sectors that are really coming up, be it blockchain, be it virtual reality, be it augmented reality, there are drone technology, IoT, right? There is a whole lot of technologies that are really coming up, right? So then you essentially have to figure out whether using these technologies, can you build applications which essentially addresses certain problems. You guys understand? The third one, easier one would be replicating certain ideas that are working in other markets in India. It's not really as straightforward as you think, right? You look at something that is working in markets, really figure out what is the problem that it is essentially trying to solve, right? Figure out is that problem is prevalent within Indian markets also, right? And whether the solution is the right solution for the Indian market or something that has to be changed. What you need to understand is what is the problem. You need to go after the problem. Problem is what really matters, right? Those are the three different buckets to really look at ideas and to really start having those conversations, right? Have conversations on the problems that you guys are facing. Have conversations on the latest technologies that are really have problems of some of the startups that are really working amazingly well in other markets, right? Something or other would essentially really take, right? So having said that, so there are certain horizontals that you need to really look at, where there are problems, right? Which is essentially there are problems, but you essentially have a amazing solution to address the problem, right? Which is I think the taxi for sure, Ola story. People were using taxis. There was already a market for people to use taxis. We didn't really create the market. We essentially came up with a solution that would essentially make it a lot more convenient for people to book taxis, right? So the market existed. We didn't create the market. We didn't build the market. We explored the market. That came much later. But at least when we were ideating, the market existed, but we had a better solution than what developed in the market. That's one, right? The second way to really look at it is there are new markets that get created, right? And these new markets are growing extremely rapidly, right? For example, Airbnb. There is no market for a sharing economy that Airbnb serves, but it was an extremely new market and it was growing extremely rapidly, right? You can essentially build on that. Understand? The third way to really look at it is there are a few ideas which were not viable because of probably the technology wasn't really there, or probably because the economics didn't really make sense, But given where things are now, those ideas are more viable, right? The best examples are virtual reality. I think the virtual reality started in the 80s, but the kind of technology to use, right, wasn't really there. People had to invest in a significant amount of hardware to really have experience virtual everything. But given the advent of smartphones, virtual reality becomes a lot more feasible these days, right? Other thing is probably solar, right? Solar was complete uneconomical few years back. The advent of technology, there's a lot of things. So this is the way to really start looking at it, right? I'm not sharing ideas or things like that, but so you essentially start having those. You can't really have conversations without any structure, but you need to essentially start really looking at that in, right, that I talked about. Look at the problem, or look at the sector and bet on the sector, or try to replicate something that already exists, or look at something that is the demand that already exists, but have a phenomenal convenient solution that you are essentially trying to build. All right. I think on that bit, so apart from the Uber story, right, I think the best example is the WhatsApp story, right? Why did WhatsApp penetrate the Indian market so much compared to any other market? Simple, everyone wanted to have chat, right? There was Yahoo Messenger, there was Google Hangout, Google Talk, there were Facebook Messenger, everything was there. Why did WhatsApp took the market and went? WhatsApp essentially, what WhatsApp did was, they didn't ask for the email ID. They just asked for phone number. India is one of those very few countries across the world where people are on the net without an email ID. That single insight gave them the entire market. Facebook Messenger, you need an email ID. Yahoo Messenger, you need an email ID. Google Talk, you need an email ID. WhatsApp Messenger, you don't need an email ID. Right? It started that way, and the network effect essentially took it away. You understand? So you don't have to really think about something that it's phenomenal or stuff like that. You just have to really start listening to the insights, right? And those insights come in during conversations, not necessarily doing it silo. It's extremely difficult to get an idea when you are silo, right? Most of WhatsApp started with just because someone want to be disturbed when they are at their gym. So WhatsApp started to essentially get the status message, I'm at the gym. That's how WhatsApp started, and once then people figured out that people are using to communicate with their families in other countries, right? And then the WhatsApp story essentially started with because phone number was what people wanted to really do, and it essentially served the Indian market, even though it's an US company by a Russian. You guys understand how to really look at that ideas. You need to have conversations, you need to start essentially discussing things in this particular, in a structured manner than essentially letting it loose. Otherwise the conversations essentially don't go anywhere. You essentially have a lot of discussions, but those conversations doesn't really get anywhere, right? So let's say you're having those discussions and you essentially stumble upon something, right? That's a good idea or whether it's the right idea, right? That's the next question, right? So let's say you did this exercise and you came up with a bunch of ideas or probably one brilliant idea. How do you know that it's a great idea? You typically get to know that you'll never get to know it's a great idea, right? And that's the beauty of it, right? I don't know how many people here are married. Anyone married? Anyone with boyfriends? I mean, I can understand that. Because boyfriend, girlfriends and stuff like that. How would you know that he or she is the right person? Can you please understand? I'm married, I have a kid also. How would you know that he or she is the right person? Do you guys have a formula for that? But do you know that he or she is the right person? You essentially get a feeling and you just go with that, right? That's essentially what really happens when you're talking about an idea, right? You don't know whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, but at least you don't have to really commit too early as far as they are concerned. But when you're looking at the girlfriend, but when you're looking at a idea, right? So once you get an idea, right, what you need to do is to figure out whether what you think is the idea is something that people really subscribe to, your customer base, be it a consumer startup or be it a consumer idea, or be it an enterprise idea and stuff like that, right? You need to essentially start engaging with the customers, right? So the moment we got an idea about taxi for sure, right? This is essentially what we need to do, right? What we did was simple thing, we did an online survey, right? Send it to all our friends, right? And almost all of them essentially told that they are also facing the same problem. Our survey was only about the problem, was never about the solution. Our survey was only about the problem, that we are facing this problem. Are you guys also facing this problem? Right? Everyone said that, oh yes, they are also facing the same problem, and we were happy that everyone is facing the same problem. But we thought that, is it skewed towards people like us who are B school graduates, who are probably consultants or BD guys and stuff like that? That's a very small market, right? So then what we did, we refined the question. Stood in front of airports in Delhi and Bangalore, spoke to people getting in and getting out of the airport. They also said the same thing, that they are also facing the problem, right? Then we thought, okay, this is an interesting thing. But again, the doubt of whether is it skewed towards only frequent flyers. Then what we did was, by this time we had a good questionnaire of 15 questions, 10 objective types and 5 explanation oriented questions. Had a bunch of stand in front of malls and speak to people. We gathered around 3000 responses or so. 92% of the people said that they are facing the. Then we thought that's amazing, right? And of all the people who essentially spent some time in filling out those explanation answers, no, we met them in person, some of them, showed the survey was only till about only the appraising them about the problem, just to ensure that whether they, so we never essentially shared the solution with anyone. We met people in person and we essentially showed the solution. People fell in love with the solution. That's when we decided to quit our jobs. Till then, no, we didn't quit when we tried. We didn't quit during ideation stage. We didn't quit when we got the idea. Only when the customers essentially loved the solution, that's when we decided to quit, right? And once your customers tell you that this is an amazing idea, that's when you get to know that there is something in, let's commit, right? So how many of you have got some annoying friends? Whatever that you do, they keep cross questioning, who are not extremely happy with whatever that you guys do, right? They're never happy, right? You need to have such kind of friends, because those are the ones who would essentially make you evaluate the idea in and out. So we had this bunch of annoying friends. Whatever work, this is not going to work, this is not going to work, this is not going to work. So we used to ask them why. So the more why we asked, the more we engage with those kind of guys. No, essentially the depth at which our research was so phenomenally high. None of the investors asked us the kind of questions that our annoying friends asked us, right? Which was beautiful, because we strong fundamentals, right? It's so there are two ways to respond to such kind of friends. One is to essentially you are not happy with whatever that you are jealous, or okay, great that you are giving me feedback. So do work on that and get back to them and figure out what are the things, because those are the people who want to pull you down, right? And by virtue of that, they will ensure that you will never fall down, right? And you need to have friends of that kind. And once you have that, then so once you are there, essentially there, don't despise them, start loving them, because they are the ones who are going to help you. Otherwise, your good friends would essentially tell, your best friends or your good friends would essentially tell you something that you want to hear. That is not going to help you, because life is brutal, right? It's going to essentially come after you the way you won't really expect. So the rather than essentially going through that stress later, right? So essentially, so you need to do that consumer research. A B2C startup or an enterprise startup, you need to essentially go and talk to your customers or your potential set of customers. Without that, if you essentially product, because you guys have a very strong background or you have a tech founder, co-founder like that, right? You are essentially building castles in the air. You don't really have a foundation. You need to have that foundation with the customers, because customers are going to give you money. If they are not happy, then there is no company, right? You need to really start doing that. That's essentially where it will come. So you get an idea, you essentially have conversations, right? And after that, you vet the idea through customers. And then you essentially have the confidence to really bet. Then you know that this is the right time, right? And during that phase, you go through a lot of iterations, whether whatever that you had initially thought of, probably that would essentially evolve changes. It may not be that it is going to be straightforward that whatever you thought was right. We got lucky because whatever that we had in mind went through. Because of conversations with your potential customers, probably you'll figure out a much bigger opportunity somewhere else, right? For that, at least you need to have those conversations. Then you will know, right? You will just start, okay, this is the right thing, right? And that's when you essentially have to start making those difficult calls in life, which I think probably Sanjeev must have talked about in the. That's the time you can have those difficult decisions that you need to really make, not before that, not at all before that, right? So that's essentially how the idea flow really works, right? Once you start making those decisions, right, it's not really easy, right? How much time would you give it? That's a question. How much time would you really give it for the idea to really work, right? Because there can be great ideas, but you might be too early, or it might be too late, right? So in order to even figure that out, in order to give an idea its due, right, do justice to the idea, you give yourself at least 2 years to really figure that out, right? That's how we convinced our families also. We know that we are doing something crazy, because mind you, this was in 2010. There are no exits in the Indian ecosystem. The only startup which had essentially an exit was Naukri, InfoEdge, which had an IPO by then. It was an Indian IPO. MakeMeter by its had not done their IPO yet. Where they were essentially doing roadshows to do their IPO. So there were no exits. People didn't really know that you could really make money by doing startups, right? Startup was a craze. It was a fad then. So it was very difficult to convince parents, right? And that's essentially, at least things were a lot more difficult then, right? My partner used to work out of Hyderabad. When he came to Bangalore, he had a bunch of girls to meet, to prospective brides to meet, right? As soon as the prospective fathers-in-law figured out that he's going to become an entrepreneur, the entire pipeline vanished, right? So being an entrepreneur during that time at least was as close to being unemployed, right? It was that. So even convincing our family was also a lot more difficult. I was married to my engineering classmate, and Aprama was my engineering batchmate also. So the first thing that she said was that you guys don't really have the courage to do the startup. She used a different word, but you guys are smart. You guys don't have the courage to really do the startup. So, but what we essentially asked her was, give us two years, right? We did. I should not be saying this here. We did 2 years of MBA, and we don't know what we actually learned, right? So give us 2 years. Right? So give us 2 years, let's figure that out, right? And if we are not going anywhere in those 2 years, we'll get back to our jobs, right? I think, given that I was a consultant and he was a BD guy, a failure teaches a lot more than successes, right? Probably I would end up being a better consultant after those 2 years, right? He would be a better business development guy. We gave ourselves 2 years, right? So then what do? Right? We gave ourselves, so startup requests money initially. Either to get married to someone who has, so that you have a rich father-in-law, so that is taken care of, or get married to someone who is probably ready to work abroad and stuff like that. So it was fairly simple. So in our case, Aprama was unemployed literally, so not married. So I was married, and popular perception is that when you start something, you will be extremely busy, you will not be able to spend time with family, which is something that my wife also knew. So I just told her that, you will know that we will not be able to spend time with each other. She said yes. Then there is no point in you and me staying in the same city. Why don't you go abroad, earn in dollars and send the money here? So I had the freedom and I had the money, and I didn't know what to do with it. Right? That's so on a serious note, right? So you need to really have some way to really ensure that things really work out, right, before you essentially start. So one is essentially getting into a startup. It's a risky venture, right? But it doesn't really mean that you do an all-in. It may not necessarily be worth it to do an all-in, right? You ensure that something else is happening in the family. Really do that, because why this is important, because you go through a lot of stress during the journey, whether it's going to be a successful startup or whether it's going to be a failure. The one reality in a startup is you are going to go through a phenomenal amount of shit. That's the reality, right? Whether you like it or not, you need to face it. But the last thing that you really want is something else killing you guys, because something within the family is not really adequate. Stays status quo, or something is really happening on the family front, so that you can completely be immersed in that. You can't really fight two battles simultaneously. It is not even. It's an unnecessary battle to fight both the personal and the professional battle together, right? Pick and choose what battles that you want to fight, right? And that's where the timing also really comes to the picture. All right. So that's a way we went about doing that. So we had a great idea. Wife was not there, and there was money, right? And so now, given that both of graduates from Ahmedabad, right? We were too far away from coding, right? And we wanted to find a tech co-founder. I think most of the people here also would be probably facing more or less the same thing, right? So I don't know how I passed out of Ahmedabad in 2011 and we started in 2011. So I was 29 years old, and many people of my engineering batch had made the same mistake as I did by doing MBA. So they were still working with the Yahoos, Googles and the Facebooks of the world, right? So we thought that it's a lot more easy for us to stuff like that, and if we are excited with the idea, they will also get excited with the idea and things like that, which happened. So all of our batchmates, everyone was excited with the idea, right? Thing is, if you don't do your MBA, you essentially take a housing loan in India. We didn't know that. If you either do your MBA and essentially get education loan, you have a choice, either you do MBA and get an education loan, or essentially continue working as an engineer or get a housing loan, right? Loan you need to have. Right, and that's the reality of life. I guess that's how India really works. So people believed in the idea, but people wanted us to pay their housing EMIs. First of all, we don't really have any money to survive ourselves, and how do we pay that? So even because of which, it became a lot more difficult for us to really do that. We spent a whole lot of time trying to do that. So because our batchmates were not really there, we essentially went after their siblings. We did all those, but nothing really more. And eventually we started learning coding ourselves and started doing it on our own, right? And the another bigger problem there was because we loved the idea, we fell in love with the idea so much, we were not willing to share the idea with anyone else. We thought that some people are better at coding, can copy the idea and can essentially do this. Set us back by 8 months. That approach set us back by 8 months. Because we were not sharing it with anyone, people didn't really believe in the idea. People whom we thought that they will do it. So people didn't believe in the idea because we are not sharing it completely, right? So no one was ready to help. After we lost that 8-9 months, then we essentially became extremely shameless. Whether people were interested in listening to us or not didn't matter. Go to any meetings, any alumni meet, go to any other meetings, any startup conferences or not, whether people are interested in listening or not doesn't really matter. We are going to share our ideas. Through that, some guy essentially felt that, oh, this is nice, and he knew someone and he was in touch with that person, and then things started rolling, right? And that's essentially how we started going ahead and building the team, right? So if I have an idea, do share with people, right? Do discuss it with people. Either they will essentially tell you why things are not going to work, or they are ready to help. If they feel that this is a great idea, they are going to help you. But you need to talk, right? Working in a stealth mode is great, but hiding the idea, not sharing the idea is going to harm you a lot more than what you really think, right? Ideas can never be an IP, right? If someone wanted to really do that, they would have already done. They were not just waiting for you to give the idea and for them to really work on, right? That usually doesn't really happen. And I think people are busy with their own life and they are essentially working on their stuff all by themselves. They don't want someone to give them an idea and stuff like that, right? So share. That's essentially what I've noticed with a whole lot of entrepreneurs. They don't want to share their idea completely because they think that someone else is better positioned to do that. What they need to understand is people are not waiting on their toes to essentially get an idea and jump into that, right? And not many people would really appreciate any idea also to that extent. So share the idea and stuff like that, right? So what are the kind of ideas that you need to really look at, right? So now, because you are going to share the idea and stuff like that, right? What really makes sense is there a first mover advantage? Correct? Is there a first mover advantage? If you are going to share the idea, if someone else would, assuming that they will do it, is there a first mover advantage? But at least whatever limited understanding that I have, I don't think so there is a first mover advantage unless you are too late. Few days or a few weeks or a few months here and there would not really make much of a difference, right? There is nothing called a first mover advantage phenomenally, right? Because if you're looking at a consumer startup, there is absolutely no brand loyalty, correct? Flipkart started in 2007, Amazon came in 2011. You guys know where you guys stand there. There is absolutely no loyalty, right? Same with Uber, Ola, TFS, any startup that you really look at, right? There is no brand loyalty. Whoever essentially does a phenomenal execution, whoever caters to the consumer need and satisfy that need in a phenomenal fashion, they are the ones who will take the market and go. But having said that, you should not be too late also, right? So there are certain competitive advantages. There is nothing called a first mover advantage, but there are certain competitive advantages, right? One, what we need to really understand is, need to figure out whether the competitor has essentially reached that competitive advantage stage or not, right? For example, network. If you want to build another Facebook and WhatsApp, not going to happen, because for them to acquire a new user, it hardly costs them any money. There is a lot more value for the user is getting by coming onto a Facebook or a WhatsApp platform, because all their friends are there. That is network effect, and you can't beat a network effect, right? Then you are too late. It's not understand the difference between a first mover advantage and a competitive advantage. That's extremely critical. There is something called nothing like a first mover advantage, but you are too late for Facebook and WhatsApp to get to that network effect stage. Then you want to start something similar to that, not going to happen. Then you are essentially taking unnecessary risk, right? So the second one is more relevant for the enterprise startups, right? Where there is a cost of switching. Someone has essentially invested so much of money building, let's say, Microsoft systems, right? .NET, SharePoint and all those things. For them to really leave that and get into a new set of products, however good, awesome that product is, it's going to be costly. They need to invest, replace all these things with a new set of machines, train their employees on the new set of machines, right? If a competitor would have gone to that stage, then starting something in that business would not necessarily be the right thing to really do, right? You guys understand the difference between the network effect and having this kind of a switching cost. Switching cost is not something that so that's the reason Redbus is a monopoly. That's the reason Book My Show is a monopoly. What people don't really understand is Book My Show has a system sitting out of all the theaters. For any competitor to really get into that territory, they have to replace those systems. And these are, trust me, these are not tech savvy guys. They will not be allowed to. So Redbus also similar story. They have their bus operators software system in all the bus operators. For a competitor to come and replace them, it's going to be a difficult thing, right? Those companies would not really go. So their consumer facing thing is not the one critical thing. For them, the SaaS product that they've essentially built, it's a lot more critical for them than this, right? And that's essentially how it would typically work, right? So please understand the difference between the competitive advantage and the first mover advantage, right? Don't go take on something which is a competitive advantage, things like that, right? That's on the idea space, right? Any questions on this at this stage before I get to the team? Okay, no worries. So let me get to the team then, right? So team is, what is the right thing to go about building a startup? Is it the right team or the right market or the right product? What do you guys think? Team is important, market is important, or the product is important? Right. So I think my personal opinion there is, I think the market is a lot more important than the team and the product, right? So I'll tell you, right. I think someone essentially mentioned this. When a great team meets a lousy market, the market wins. It can be an amazing bunch of guys, but the market is extremely small, right? The market is ensure that the company is going to fail, right? And a lousy team meets a great market, the market wins. The market will ensure that it will get the product out of this team with multiple iterations and stuff like that, right? When a great team meets a great product, great market, then something special happens. That's where the unicorns are really born, right? We can probably take a stance that the right team is something which will improvise, which will pivot and stuff like that. But unless they pivot to a great market, it's nothing's going to work, right? The sure shot killer for a startup is the lack of market, right? So you have to really start looking at that, right? So market is a lot more important, not necessarily the team, right? But if you essentially go couple of levels below, then you need to have the right people with the right market and the right product, right? Until then nothing really happens, right? That's a way to really look at it, right? And founders, who are the right team, how do you go about building the right team and things like that, right? So that's also right. Majority of the people feel that they don't really have a tech background for them to really work on building a great team and things like that, right? So you just don't have to really worry about the skills of the people. What you need to really look at is certain values, right? Whether the core values of the individuals that essentially I'm trying to build it as a co-founding team matches with my core values, right? Do they have the drive? Are they curious? Are they passionate? Right? That's what essentially matters. If someone is passionate, someone has the drive, they'll acquire the skills. If someone has the skills, they will not acquire the drive and the passion and the curiosity. You guys have to understand, right? So don't try to build a co-founding team which has the right skills, right? So the reality is, once a startup essentially get to a particular stage, you will not be building products, you will not be writing codes, you will not be doing marketing, you will be organizations, you will be focusing on building the culture of the company, you will be focusing on addressing the HR issues, you will be focusing on fundraise. You guys understand? The necessity of skill is too far overrated. You might probably be using those skills for at least 1 or 2 years, not more than that. Once you essentially build a great team, they will be doing all that. Your skills, whatever you thought that the skills are extremely important for the founding team, is not at all required once the startup gets to a particular stage. The problem with us is we give too much of onus for something that we will see in the short term and miss the big picture, right? But you are not necessarily having a co-founder only for the first 1 or 2 years. This co-founder has to last till the lifetime, right? That is more important. For that, the curiosity, the drive, right, ethics, integrity, those things matter a lot more than the skills, right? I mean, that's essentially what we do in the college as well. We focus more on strategy courses, we focus more on operations courses, logistics courses and stuff like that. We don't do much on HR, OD and other things. But whether you are part of a startup or you be part of a corporate, stuff like that, right? You get to a stage very soon where you will not be doing strategy, where you will not be focusing on operations, you will not be doing logistics, you will be essentially looking at building organizations, trying to motivate the team to achieve something in life, right? Hiring people, letting go of people, addressing HR issues between people and stuff like that, right? But we focus more on Manac, accounts, we focus more on strategy, so because we will get people to do all that for you. But no one essentially is going to help you build an organization, drive the culture of the company, deal with HR issues and stuff like that. That is something that you guys have to really do, right? So never go for a co-founder because of certain skills that you currently missing with you at this stage. But what you need to really do is, what is the kind of skills that would essentially build a strong foundation. On top of that, every other skill is required. The person can, for the time being, if you don't really have resources, they themselves have to do it. Otherwise, you need to do it. And in a startup, everything goes through ups and downs and stuff like that, right? For example, in a taxi for sure kind of a business, our performance, the company's performance was as much as the least performing team, right? So we had a, let's say, marketing is not able to generate enough calls, right? Even though our tech is phenomenal, can handle, let's say, 100k transactions a day, doesn't matter. Even though we have adequate supply to essentially cater to 100k customers, doesn't really matter because we don't really have enough customers. Understand? So that's essentially what the number of transactions that we can service is only how much can the marketing really do that. Let's say marketing figured out a way to take it to 200k, but supply is only 100k, but the technology can handle 150k. then whatever maximum that we can do is 100K. You guys understand? So on and so forth. So if you essentially start splitting the responsibility between founders, that you take care of technology, I take care of product, you take care of marketing, I take care of these things, right? Once things go through that, then you need to get all hands on deck. You understand? Everyone has to be essentially focusing on solving the marketing problem or solving the supply problem, right? Having so, then the skills doesn't really matter. Right, skill doesn't really matter. Then everyone essentially has to do whatever that is required. That is the need of the hour. A co-founder cannot be sitting on a chair because marketing is not his or her domain, but the other co-founder's domain. So the other co-founder is logging. Will that happen? Do you really think that is going to happen? That's not going to happen. Then why are we so afflicted towards skills in a co-founder? Skills are just incidental, right? You need to really do that. But having said that, you need to have responsibility. Somebody's neck should be on the line. You understand? You divide responsibilities. You can't be like collective responsibility essentially becomes no one's responsibility. But someone's neck is on the line. Your co-founder's neck is on the line. But you also pitch in when the need matters. And need arises all the time, because it's not that both the teams will be performing as well or as bad at the same time. One team will be performing extremely well, another team will be performing extremely bad, but essentially both of them have to really converge. Right? So the affinity towards skills is too far overrated, right? So don't look at co-founders for their skills, look at for the fundamental values. The value system essentially has to really match. But let's say if someone doesn't really mind bribing to get things done, but the other person essentially has a strong disagreement with bribe, right? Then you are essentially going for a toss, right? And both the co-founders essentially have to be ambitious. Right? You need to have the same ambition, but not necessarily the same aspiration. The goal, the drive towards the goal has to be there. The aspiration may not necessarily be the same, because invariably in any startup, one of the co-founders would essentially take the lead. If you look at Flipkart, it's Sachin Bansal's name that you hear. If in a Redbus, it's Fanindra Sama that you typically hear. Right? So if you really look at most of the startups, right, you hear one co-founder's name a lot more than others. The one co-founder has more media coverage than the other co-founder, right? If both the co-founders have the same aspiration that I need to be in the media as much as you are and stuff like that, right, it starts leading to conflicts, right? You should not really have that. And so people are not so broad-minded to even outrightly say that I need more media coverage. But it starts showing in other things, right? And the majority of the startups in India fail primarily because of co-founder conflicts, not because the market was bad or the product, or they were not able to raise funding and stuff like that, right? People were not able to raise funding because the investors essentially sense the conflict between the two, right? But the problem with the Indian VCs is no one essentially tells them the problem, right? And that's essentially why things break. So you need to really figure out, that's the thing. And the best way to really find co-founders is someone with whom you have engaged in the past, be it at the workplace or be it whether you have studied together, whether you guys have played together and stuff like that, because you know those people in and out. When they didn't really have to put on in front of you, you knew the true identity, and you can essentially figure out whether you can gel with that identity or not, whether the chemistry would really work with them or not. And that's how you need to go about looking at it, right? But just because you get an idea and you think that particular person has this kind of skill sets and stuff like that, try to get that person. Probably your short-term problems are gone. Probably you will build a phenomenal app, phenomenal website, phenomenal product, but your problem starts post that only. You are essentially married to that co-founder. The co-founder is not able to scale, is not able to open towards a lot of other things, and the co-founder is not necessarily doing what he was supposed to do earlier, because now the company has become big. Then you just can't stay with the co-founder also, let go of the co-founder also, because you have taken VC money. It leads to a lot more chaos than way. So if you really are looking at co-founders and stuff like that, don't bet on skills. Bet on your fundamental values. Bet on, so you just have to really look at the other person and feel that whether you can live with that person in their worst moment, and vice versa also, whether they can essentially put up with your worst moment. Whenever you guys are pushed to the wall, the way you guys are going to behave, the way you guys are going to react, are they fine with that? Are they can put up with that? Because you go through a lot of things. some stress somewhere else, funding is not really happening, you essentially take it on the team and the co-founder, or something that really is bothering you somewhere else, but you essentially take it on the team and the co-founder, right? So that's you've been pushed to the wall and you're behaving that way. But as long as people can essentially figure out that, okay, there's something bothering him or her, let me give that space. But you essentially get with someone who would essentially start making it a lot more difficult for you, because you're already in a stressful situation, but it becomes a lot more difficult for you guys, then the relationship is not going to essentially hold, right? So don't invest in skills, figure out that whether you are able to deal with the person during their worst time of crisis or not, and those are the guys, and you will essentially find such kind of people when you essentially dig deeper in your own thing. And it's always better to have a co-founder than doing it all on your own, because you need someone to take the load. Trust me, it's extremely stressful to run a startup, right? And if you are alone and things like that, right, it becomes a lot more demanding, right? Not that one cannot, it's not worth it, but but it doesn't mean that you need to have a cricket team to run the startup, right? 2 or 3 is a good number. More than that, even though you get a great exit, you will not probably make enough money, and you would essentially, if you turn out to be the CEO of the startup, most of the time you essentially goes in dealing HR issues with your co-founders only, right? So it's not advisable to have a huge startup now for the money's sake, for dealing with HR issues and things like that. But a 2 to 3 member startup is a good thing, right? Where you have some company to share the responsibility, right? If you fall sick or if you are not in the mood to do something, they can essentially pitch in and get the thing. There are a few things that you don't want to do. Let's say, for example, you don't want to deal with the government authorities, right? Then the co-founder would essentially pitch in and deal with that. As far as the government is concerned, they're speaking to the founder. They're fine with that, right? Than speaking to an employee, right? So you would essentially find a lot of use for having that way. You need someone to share the load. It's very otherwise it becomes too stressful, and I don't think so it's really worth it, right? It's better to do something like this with someone that you want to do it with, right? So it gets pretty stressful, but if you are with someone, it is a lot more fun. It's a lot more fun, right? So I don't know whether you guys have experienced in Ahmedabad or not. When you're doing group studies, however stressful the situation is, because you are essentially like the group, right? You love it, right? Whether it is a back-to-back quizzes or back-to-back things, you will still love it. So then there is no challenge which is essentially too big, because you're in the right shape. Whether all of you essentially go down the drain together, there is happiness in that, or if all of you together essentially ace it also, there is happiness in it, right? It's better to essentially have a bunch of co-founders and have fun while building the startup, right? A lot of things will come and go. Media would essentially make you into a rock star overnight and essentially pull you down the another night, right? Or you essentially start letting those things in your head, nothing's going to really happen. So, but essentially you enjoy what you are doing and enjoy it with a bunch of guys that you really like and you want to be with, and that's really what matters. And after that, whether the exit happens, whether you fail and stuff like that, doesn't really matter. If you fail, you would have learned so much, you would essentially figure out that there is an opportunity somewhere else and you start something. And if you succeed and you make money, it's better to essentially have friends who have got more or less the same amount of money, so that you can essentially, and the time also, so that you can essentially spend the time and the money with them, than essentially sitting on a huge pile of cash and sitting alone, than not knowing what to do with all that, because all your friends are busy working, right? And that's a way to really look at it. So this is on the co-founding team and the idea space. Any questions?
Hi. The biggest problem I faced was like, how do you say no to your co-founder without upsetting them? Because, yeah.
Are you married?
Yes.
Haven't you said no to your wife at all without upsetting her?
No. I do whatever she says. Only one battle at a time.
Sorry?
Only one battle at a time.
It all depends on no for what.
Like we had a value, means I had a value in my mind, but he was, because it was kind of aggregator kind of system, and he was putting in things which are not in line with the values, and it was very difficult to convince him, because he was also passionately working towards it.
See, if there is a difference in the values, then you need to figure out moving apart, sooner the better. But if it has got to do with something which is very extremely minor, then do an A/B testing, right? And that's where the sticking the neck out really makes sense. Let's say your co-founder takes care of marketing and you are handling operations, for example, right? And if it's a marketing decision, you have a different point of view, but his will be the final say. As far as operations is concerned, you have a different point of view with your co-founder, but you will have the final say, right? And that's essentially how you need to really do that. But if it is a fundamental issue in terms of ethics and integrity and stuff like that, right, then that's the time you need to essentially move on. So there's nothing like telling no to the co-founder. If it is because once the ethics comes in between a relationship, it will never go away because it will always play in the back of the mind, and it's better to part ways sooner than later.
The way you could see a lot of issues during the exit of Redbus, people issues. We didn't hear any people issues during your time when you exited.
So thankfully we had I knew Funny,
Okay.
because of which he helped me to understand what really happened there, so that I don't make the same mistakes that he probably did.
So, but would you say that a lot of coordination between the co-founders is required when you exit, or
See, exit is a lot more challenging. It's not rational, right? Running a business probably is more rational than probably getting an exit, because there is a phenomenal amount of emotion that is involved, because it's your baby and you don't want to let go of the baby. So not many people would be in line with that, right? So it becomes a lot more difficult. But I think one has to give time for the person to really start growing into that situation, right? And try to figure out what is the rational way to really do it. But between co-founders, there will always be a lot of disagreements.
Okay.
As the company is growing. It's not just for the exit, right? During the running of the company also, there's a lot of disagreements and stuff like that. As long as you know who is the decision maker for that particular role, right? You agree to disagree and still move on, right? When it comes to the exit, you figure out who the CEO is, right? It's the CEO's call. You can agree to disagree, but it is the CEO's call, right? Whatever is the call, they need to live with that, right? So that's it. So what to the same thing, right? So have responsibilities, clearly defined responsibilities, stick your neck out. But if something is struggling, put all hands on deck, but that person is responsible, right? If there is a differing point of view, whoever is responsible would essentially have the final say on that. That's how to make progress.
Thank you.
Otherwise, you essentially get into a deadlock, there is no progress, right? The last thing that we need to really do it is to deliberating too much on making the right decision, right? That's not going to happen. That's not going to help at all. I think the fundamental difference in the way we grew, and probably other companies who couldn't really grow in that particular, in this space, was we used to make decisions extremely fast, right? We made a lot of wrong decisions than the right decisions, but the impact of getting those right decisions sooner far outweighed the wrong decisions that we made, right? We never deliberated too much on making a decision. We essentially used to make a decision and work towards making it right, than essentially spend too much of time in making the right decision.
And one last thing, what I've heard is that you had two options between Ola and Uber both. So what was your priority in choosing Ola, except for the valuations? I mean, why Ola, why not Uber?
I think there is too much of literature written there, and it's probably not part of this conversation on yes and
What I could make out is it's more of your team. I mean, you wanted some amount to be given to your team as compared to, I mean.
Part of it is true, but there is more to it than that. But not necessarily part
Thank
of this discussion.
Thanks, Raghu. I wanted to go back to the discussion on idea. So you ran us through the journey of your idea, which was successful in the first one. So would you have any suggestions for people who are kind of not coming up with the right idea? Maybe you've seen failures, or even to stretch things a bit further. What are you doing to get the second successful idea now? So I'm just wanting to see if there can be a pattern to what you would do.
So I think so I rely completely on conversations, right? And for me to even invest in do angel investing in startups is also essential to be keep myself abreast of whatever that is happening in the ecosystem, right? People who are on the ground would essentially understand a lot more than what I typically do, right? So I engage myself in interacting with a lot of startups. I attend a lot of startup conferences, right, and essentially share ideas and things like that, and people talk, right, and there you essentially feel that a lot of things that can be done, right, and that's one, right. And second thing is there is a whole lot of problems that we are facing as a country. There has been phenomenal things that we can do, right, and that is something that can be solved. And there is something that is fundamentally shifting in India, Aadhaar coming in, that opens up a phenomenal number of opportunities, and it's a straightforward thing, right? What all SSN as social security number, Aadhaar, social security number in US has disrupted in the US market, Aadhaar can do the same thing and probably more in India, right? And Aadhaar has no catch up SSN. That opens up a phenomenal number of opportunities, right? And Aadhaar is a government thing, but applications on top of Aadhaar, any private company can easily do, and probably Nandan wants that only, so that usage of Aadhaar becomes much more relevant than just for government subsidies and stuff like that, right? There is a phenomenal play there, and that's a way to really look at it, right? And invariably any kind of such kind of conversations also, right, you keep getting ideas, but yeah, you just have to really figure out whether you are passionate about the idea, right? You really want to do something about the idea and stuff like that, and that goes through.
So you talked about doing a market research and trying to get your see if there is a demand for your idea. Let's say you build the product and you find yourself that while there was initial positive response, later you find out that actually people are not ready to buy it. There could be multiple reasons for it, but how do you evaluate at multiple stages during the product development if you are going on track, and how do you, I guess, change the idea itself to manage with the customer perception?
So what you do is you don't really disengage the customers during the product development stage, right? And the product development is also more of an iterative cycle. So you essentially build a minimum viable product, take it to the customers. You don't wait for the right product to be really built, right? You be extremely agile, get the MVP out and get those people to start using it. People who essentially said that they love this solution and stuff like that, right? Let them start engaging it, and you see, right, what people say and what people do are completely different, right? So you don't have to really put all your eggs in the basket of what people say, right? Give them your MVP, figure out how are they playing with it, how are they engaging with it. You get to learn a lot more that way than what they try to say, right? And every time you keep on doing that, right? So the way what we did was some of the people that engaged, right, who we went and spoke, met and essentially showed the solution and stuff like that, right? We continue to engage with them, right? As and when the product started essentially getting built and stuff like that, we gave that product, right? They started engaging. And also some of the customers who used to give us negative feedback, right? Why are you doing it this way, don't do it that way and stuff like that, we started engaging with those guys also, right? And over a period of time, what really happened was whenever we launched a new version of the product and things like that, we used to go give it to them first as beta testers, and they used to feel privileged because no one else had access to that and they had access to it, and they would do whatever that is really required to essentially test it out, give feedback. So by the time we essentially release the product into the market, most of the issues were ironed out and we exactly knew what we really wanted, right? And those also, so that making the customer, some of the customers feel special also helps in essentially waiting that. So, and it's a continuous process, it's not only at the early stages, it's a continuous process. You need to keep engaging with the customers, you need to figure out those, and which is what we used to call as focus group discussions. We used to have this quite often, focus group discussions with our customers, just for them to understand what is that we are trying to do.
Two questions. One, you said idea cannot be IP. You can't compete based on just idea. You need to frequently share. So I can't see anything else you have at that time to offer. Because if you are going to VC and he said he heard the same idea yesterday, then you are gone because you have nothing else to offer. So
no VC is going to give you money because of your idea, unless you have a phenomenal other credit. You go for first time on very difficult people for it is going to happen.
So what else we can add with
To
that?
get those sort of engagement there somewhere.
But all that will be in concept stage only, right? You don't have anything.
No, the MVP would be at the product development,
Okay.
right? You need to get to that stage. Otherwise, they say that this is exciting, we love this solution, but
Okay.
right, everyone wants to see the customers using the product. Till then, nothing's going to happen.
The second thing is, if none of your founder is a technical guy, and your business is like Uber or e-commerce where technology is a backbone. So at that time, should you include that technical lead as a founder? Because if he leaves, then you are gone because you are technology blind, all the founders. So
If you take them as a co-founder also, you could still leave.
he has more stakes to.
Not necessary. Not necessary. People would typically leave. I don't think that's really the challenge, and I don't think so. You should essentially look at tech at least tech, but it is not unless you get into an enterprise cyber security kind of a product with encryption algorithms and stuff like that. You understand what I mean? So if you're talking about Uber or Amazon stuff like that, no, not really there.
But technology is a big point where they are competing. Right? Yes.
Completely different stage, right? So when for sure we are the same for the call center, not because we didn't have engineers. This is market. Most of the people. So there were no. But even we had strength, we didn't really do that, right? So you go for technology products like that. You need to go for a co-founder that whom can work with at a later stage also.
Capital investment did you do while starting up with this?
I think the numbers are a bit different during this stage. At least then both upfront at 8 lakh rupees, 4 lakh each
Okay.
when we started.
So
Till we got our VC money.
So I'm a little unaware about how your history. So I'm gonna ask a layman question.
I can't hear. Can you hold it closer?
Yeah. All taxi when you all the taxis that were away.
So we essentially went and told we never hired all of them. We went and told them that see, we'll give you business. If you want to do it, take it up. Right, it was simple. So essentially, so then we told them, so this is extra business that you are going to get. Only if the once you take that up and once the customer gives you money, then only you pay us. You are not going to lose anything by working with us. If you have your own business, don't accept the booking. If you don't have any business, accept the booking.
Was it very easy? Ask them whether they'll pay you and like.
We never wanted them to pay also. We wanted the solution to work because you can't really build a business with taking that money at the initial. Let's say you work with 5 cabs, 10 cabs, 20 cabs. That money is not going to give you. But at least that you need to know that, I mean, because collections are important, but not at that stage. Because what your value is not collecting money. Your value is whether the customers really feel that this is a better solution than whatever that is available in the market. And you do whatever that is possible to get there. And after that, you essentially do that.
Yeah, so when you were analyzing the various idea you had in your head while you were here at this college, so what were you thinking about? Where were you finding the money coming from, whether from your customer or from valuation or exit plan some years from then?
See, we didn't know, at least when we were on campus, we didn't understand the VC business, right? We didn't really understand that. So it was difficult. But when we started the business, right, we knew that we would require some money to get the product developed because we had to hire people to do that. Right, we knew that there would be some money would be required, but we always ensured that we collect money from our customers, right? And over a period of time, we essentially made it into a prepaid service where the drivers used to pay us beforehand, and based on the business, we used to deduct commissions from them, right? So we moved to that because there is a we believe there is a fundamental value in the business, and that's how we went about doing that.
I have a question related to the team. So you mentioned that as a startup matures, there's a transition that happens in the roles of the founders. So is there any specific set of stages that we can talk about, that there are 3 or 4 different stages, or any considerations that we should have while going through those transition phases?
See, there is no standard rule like that. Alright, it's a function of how fast the startup is really growing. Alright, and as founders, how much are you investing in yourself to really grow, right? So for example, all of you know how to ride a two-wheeler, no? Right? And if you ride a two-wheeler at, let's say, 60 kilometers per hour, you can easily manage a two-wheeler. 100 you can manage, 140, 150 can you manage a two-wheeler? Difficult, but you know that there are people who ride two-wheelers at 250 kilometers per hour. Right? That's a skill. So you can also do that, but we need to essentially invest in yourself to really get to that skill level. And building a startup is also as similar to that. If the startup is growing extremely fast, and if you are not able to invest in yourself to grow to essentially manage that startup, then you are essentially feeling that shortcoming in yourself. And not many people would really be able to do that. Right? And that's when the professional CEOs really come in. The investors bring in professional CEOs because they know that the founders are not able to scale. Right? And it's a function of that. If there are founders who are able to scale, who are able to take more and more load, right? Because people are people. Some people essentially have the higher affinity to essentially flirt with uncertainty. Some people don't really have that, right? Some people can essentially sleep well even though there is everything around them is falling apart. They can still sleep in the night. Some people cannot, and some people take too much of stress for absolutely nothing, right? So you essentially figure out who are those people who can live with all that, and if they are able to scale, those are the people who would essentially start taking up more and more over a period of time. So it's nothing like, it's not necessarily the stage of the company and stuff like that. People can essentially, some co-founder can essentially probably not be able to scale beyond the seed also. Sometimes probably the founders can essentially scale, both of them or all the co-founders can scale to a completely different level also. The Flipkart is a phenomenal example. Both Sachin and Binny are there. But it's not the same case with other co-founders. So some of the co-founders would have also dropped off in different startups as well. So it's not necessarily the stage at which the company is in, but it's a function of the growth rate of the startup and the growth of the individual as well, right? And both of them essentially has to work together.
I have a question.
Sir, yeah.
Okay.
So both of you have the mic.
Question. So, this is in terms of evaluating a startup. So, you use different scale to evaluate a startup at different stages. So, a scale that an angel use is not similar to what a VC might use, right? So, as an angel investor, what is that you look at while investing in a startup? So, is it the financial projections they are putting out, or is it really the qualitative data such as the team or the idea? So, what is the significance that you attach to different elements?
See, I think the one standard rule there is whatever that got you to a stage will never get you to the next stage, right? And that's clear, that has to be extremely clear, right? Because of it is. So at the stage that I really make investments, I look at the market, right? Market is pretty important. Then I look at the team. Those are the two things, right? And my knowledge of the market and my outlook of how the market is going to turn out to be at a later date. Right? If someone would have asked that whether taxi for sure would become so big, or Uber and the Ola, or this taxi industry is going to be so big, I wouldn't have even known. But I knew there was a demand, that's what it is, and it was a big demand, and we were trying to solve this, and we didn't know that we would essentially change the way the dynamics of the market would really work. Right? That's where my experience really comes in when I'm speaking to some startup of that kind, where the entrepreneur would not be able to see that far. If I'm able to see that far, that's where I want to really engage and continue to work. So it's not just about putting money. Right, I want to really engage because I feel that this market is going to essentially be disrupted this way, and I fall in love with that. And the team is also important primarily because I want to know whether I can work with those guys. Right, you can't really fill something that is already full. Right, you can't fill them. Right, so if they are not open for any suggestions or any feedback and stuff like that, right, no point in engaging with those guys, even though the market is awesome. Right, and you don't really want that S-boss kind of thing. So you are there, you have been there, done that. So whatever that you say is correct. Only I will do whatever that you say. That is also kind of bunch of guys you don't really want to deal with, right? People who would essentially listen to you, but would essentially go back and evaluate and feel that whether that's the right thing to do or not. People who have the mind of their own, those are the people you want to really back.
And typically how long do you take to judge a person? I mean, judge a team or whatever it is. So I mean, they come to your pitch and that is just for a couple of hours or something, the engagement.
So typically, right, so most of the people that I typically engage with are come through references. People whom I know already, who have probably engaged with them in different capacities. Those are the people I would essentially tend to meet, right? So because there is an history there, then it's more of a comfort factor and stuff like that. It's not that the first meeting only I'm going to write a check. It's not going to happen. At least we would have 2 or 3 conversations. I need to first get comfortable, right? And if there is a completely unknown market, I want to go and do my own homework on the market, right? And then I start speaking to people and figure out and give some suggestions and see whether those people have worked on the suggestions or not, right? Or they have a different point. If they haven't worked on it, if they have a different point of view, I just want to understand the point of view, right? And I would love to work with people who would agree to disagree, who have their own point of view, right? And that's it evolves for a period of time. There is nothing like it takes a 15-minute or a 20-minute or half an hour and stuff like that. Probably some people whom I've personally engaged with, probably in the first interaction only it could really happen, right? Otherwise, I primarily bank on referrals.
Yeah, so sir, I have a question regarding the idea itself. So suppose one is having an idea and then he explores that idea is already implemented and it has been implemented recently. So what are the things one should consider before going for that idea? So in 2016 itself, there is one idea in January which has been started as a startup, but now you also wanted to enter into that market. Then what are the things one should consider before going for that?
So there, right, what you need to really look at is it's not just about the idea, it's about the execution. Right? Are you bringing any significant value to the business what the other startup has not been able to bring? Right? If that is the case, then you may want to really pursue. But or other thing is the same value proposition, but you feel that the team is not executing it really well. Then if you think that you are the best person to really execute, then you can do that. So for example, Facebook was not the first social media platform, Facebook, right? So there was Friendster, there was MySpace. I think where MySpace essentially lost out to Facebook was MySpace essentially opened up the social media platform to all the people. Facebook started with university by university, right? So people who were on MySpace, they never gave the true identity because it was open to everybody. But when it comes to Facebook, people started giving the true identity because it was only within the university campus, and you almost more or less knew all the people in the campus, right? And that essentially set it apart. You understand? So Facebook followed MySpace, but they essentially changed the way the execution was really done, and that got them the entire market. So there was a different value. So from a consumer point of view, because you are in the same university campus circle, I don't mind sharing my identity. But on a MySpace thing, the value is far more compromised because it's open to everyone. Eventually Facebook opened it up, but the market entry point was that. So even though it was the same idea, right, the way they got executed very different. So even the value prop is the same and stuff like that, the way they got executed was different. So that's something that you need to really look at it, right? But you should not really wait for Facebook to become that, have that network effect where everybody is going on to Facebook because all their friends are on Facebook. If you wait till then, however well your execution is, you will not get anywhere.
So I guess given the time constraint, we can take 2 more questions.
So how did you convince your first 10 employees to join Taxi for Sure? I mean, I'm sure you couldn't pay them at par with the industry. How did you really sell it to them? And second question is, can you tell us about some HR issues that you faced which could disintegrate the company? I mean, they were at that level.
So the first 10 employees, interesting. So we built the company bottom up, right? So by that I mean is we essentially hired people who could take calls and things like that, right? So since we were not able to pay market salaries, it was very difficult to find people from different companies, BPOs, to come and join us. So what we did was we started going to certain schools and colleges, colleges rather, where if the exam time is between 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. we used to stand there at 10:30 a.m. and figure out who are the people who are coming out of the examination hall. And you know that these people are not going to clear exams, right? So none of the other companies will take them. So their best bet is us. So that's how essentially, so that was the way we hired the first guy, right? And after we got the first guy, once we started scaling, right? And we told him that that guy was extremely loaded. So we told that, it's too much for me. So what I will do is I'll get some of my friends. We told, okay, go ahead and get your friends. And we used to speak, we spoke to them and we find that they are fine. And they got, because he got his friends, because we had taught him how to go about doing his job, he started teaching them how to go about doing that. And if they made a mistake, you used to give them one whack on the head and they used to get it right. And we didn't have to really worry about all that because there was a bunch of friends who were trying to solve that. So that's essentially how things started really moving apart, right? You need to essentially start doing things like this to really get to that, because market share is not something that you can really compete with, right? You need to be a lot more creative, a lot more innovative in doing that. And the problem with most of the Indians is they don't really understand ESOPs. They don't understand equity, they don't understand ESOPs, employee stock options plan, right? They don't understand stock options. So it's very difficult to tell them that, okay, take a salary cut now, I'm going to give you more ESOPs. They don't really understand. So you need to be a bit more creative and a bit more innovative in doing that. You have the mic.
So how do you evaluate a firm that is venturing into a market that exists as in the reality? I mean, that doesn't exist already, but they're trying to build a market. So
I didn't understand.
How do you evaluate a firm that doesn't exist already, but they're trying to build it? Like Instagram would have had a market when they started. All assets would have a market when they started.
So our thing is a lot different from the Instagram thing, right? So we had a market. There was a demand for taxis. We brought the convenience angle to it, right? So majority of the Indian startups essentially are on that path. If the question is, would a Facebook or a WhatsApp come out of India? Would be difficult. Would necessarily be difficult, right? And that's a bit. So you can essentially take a Steve Jobs kind of an approach to ideas, until then the people don't even know what they want. And you build it for them and essentially put the might of the organization behind it to get it very much. But those things are rare, right? And it's very difficult to really sell such kind of things, and you don't really bet on that. And there should be something for you to connect to it. So I've made some bets of that where I think it's future tech, or whether it's going to be more a global product and stuff. Those are just, I don't have a rational what would be the pivoting point in the minds of the customer to really start embracing it, right? Example is a bit different, but if your question is this is what it is. Very difficult to get it out of India.
So I guess
enough guys, thank you. Thank you.
So I guess that was one insightful session, and we sincerely hope that's going to go a long way in cultivating the culture of entrepreneurship at IIM Ahmedabad. I'd now like to invite Professor Karna, Chair CII, to hand over the mentor and give a vote of thanks to our speaker.
Thanks a lot, Raghu, for spending the evening here. I'm sure you have left everybody of us here with lots of ideas on ideas, markets, also how to pick up fights at home. So thanks a lot for spending time here. I'm sure there are some more questions here, but you can maybe catch him. He still has an hour to go before he catches his flight. So thanks a lot.
Thank you for that.
There was so much said in the session. Make sure to also view the video once it is online in a couple of days. So thank you everyone and have a nice evening.